Welcome to the first Connected Life Book Club podcast discussion question chat time.
For Love Lives Here by Maria Goff.
Chat time. Now, we're excited to be able to go through the discussion questions alongside you as you're reading through the books. We're also just kind of diving in so that we can have our own little mini weekly book clubs on our Facebook page and the podcast, of course, and all places that you can download and stream this video and podcast.
Yeah,
Podcast.
So we're super excited because we have no idea what's going to come out of our mouths for this. This is not a this is like not a rehearsed
Welcome to
thing.
our lives.
So this is kind of like sitting in on our genuine book club discussion. Candace, I'm excited.
We haven't been like talking about this. We're saving it for this time right here.
This could be a train wreck.
No. It's going to be awesome.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so I'll ask you a couple questions, Summer. Well, we'll start with the first one. Let's dive in.
Okay.
So in chapter 1, there's the lodge, that evidently burns down, which is wild. So what is your lodge? So whether it was a difficult time or a loss of something significant, how did you see God's presence during that time?
So I was thinking about this question, and I feel like I had a lot of little lodges. And it wasn't actually since I started walking with Christ. It was beforehand. And for me, I feel like a lot of the lodges that I experienced that burned down were relationships in my life. I had a lot of those before I met Adrian, before I met Jesus. And it was definitely not like, oh, this is my life's work. I spent my whole life building this thing like Maria did with her lodge. But you couldn't have told me that at the time. Like, it was this super significant thing. And every one of them burned hot, burned fast, and burned down in the end. Do you know what I'm saying? Like
I think so. I'm wrapping my mind around it.
Every single relationship in my life was significant to me at the time. And looking back at my life, it was like this addiction. So all the other things that I had gotten into before I came to the Lord, all the other substances or addictions were nothing compared to the addiction I had for relationships in my life. And so these things were like the biggest deal in my life. I thought this was everything. And then it was destroyed. And I look back now and I feel like God was totally protecting me during that time. I feel like the fact that there was nothing left at the end was so important because, like Maria said, like, they didn't even have the foundation remaining after this fire.
Right.
And I needed it to go. I needed every scrap of it, every piece of timber to literally burn up so that I wasn't tempted to go back and build upon it again. And I wish that Adrian was like my one and done lodge. Like, that would be great. But looking back over my life, like, I had a lot of these fires, and it took a lot of time and trust to realize that them burning up was the best thing that could have happened to me.
Sure.
But there was just a lot of those mini tragedies in my life. And so when I think of like what she was describing, just the shock, the pain, the stunned, like, what just happened? This was supposed to last forever. I think the closest thing I have in my life that I could associate that with was all of those times that I tried to grab hold of these dating relationships and make them something that they were never meant to be.
That's really interesting because I can relate to that to a certain extent. I definitely have a passion for people and can have that somewhat obsessive kind of,
Sure.
You're my focus right now kind of mentality. And to a certain extent, that's kind of similar to how I would answer too, except mine is more in terms of like seasons of life. So when it comes to even close friendships or groups, even things that were good for me, that eventually ended up kind of simmering out. So it wasn't so much, I guess, a burned down kind of thing, but more so just like a moving on. And I really resonated when she was like picking up all of these different things that she found and like had to identify what they were in the house in order to like accept that it was gone and then to move on. I feel like I've experienced that more so as like I progress through seasons, because you see different memories and you want to jump back to that time. You want to be able to like, oh, remember when it was just so easy to have this friendship, or when we all just had nothing else in the world going on but to hang out. And to recognize that that was a great time, but now we've grown into other things and there's nothing but opportunities in front of us. I think that is what really resonated with me. And I think that's how God works through all of us. I mean, we have moments that are good or bad, and then we hopefully grow out of them. I think she said something, maybe you have it in your book. It was about, when things burn down, it's not about like reliving the pain, but it's about growing something beautiful from it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
I have that. I've highlighted in my book. He doesn't just make beauty from the ashes. He makes something far better. He shapes us into who we're becoming.
Yes. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. And so, I mean, there's been times in my life since coming to the Lord too, that something's been taken away, something's been removed, my life has changed, like you were saying. And I can't say that I've arrived at that place where I never worry anymore and like I trust instantly, but I like to think that it takes less effort because of all the times that I have seen him take something out and it hurt and I mourned it, but then ultimately he's turned it into something better. And like he never fails. Like it always ends up being better his way than it was going to be my way.
Isn't that just something?
Oh, God. Isn't that so like the Lord?
All right. Let's dive into the second one. So, when have you felt God leading you in an uncertain direction where you needed to step out in bravery? In that chapter, she talked about suffering with an eating disorder, and somebody in her school situation said, hey, we have counselors available. Who needs to see a counselor? And it was like that one crazy act of bravery for her to say, actually, something's not right here and I can't fix it on my own.
Yeah, I mean, just raising her hand in that classroom with all of her peers watching. I can't even imagine how scary that was. So I think probably the scariest moment in my faith journey was going back to work the day after I became a Christian. Because it wasn't a gradual thing for me. I got saved from rock bottom on Easter Sunday. And
that's coming up.
Yeah. So technically my 10-year spiritual birthday was on the 12th because 10 years ago it was on the 12th that happened. But I mean, Friday, Saturday of that weekend, like I was out partying with people from work. Like they knew me as this person. I hit rock bottom. I accepted the Lord on Sunday, and Monday I'm back at work. And I was terrified because I'm walking back into this situation and these people are expecting me to literally go on my break and go drinking with them. I mean, because that's what I did. And now I'm saying like, hey, I'm different now. And I'm expecting them to, first of all, believe me. And second of all, take me seriously in any way, shape, or form. And these are people I knew were not sympathetic to Christ because I wasn't sympathetic to Christ.
Interesting.
And so that was, I think, a really scary time where I really wanted to be exploring my faith, and I really actually wanted to be talking about it, but didn't feel like I had the freedom or the crowd with which to do that. And I would sit at my desk and I would feel like I had to hide what I was reading because no one would understand. And the day that I didn't, the day that I just allowed myself to own the fact that I was reading I think it was A Case for Faith by Lee Strobel, because I had all the questions. I allowed myself to just boldly open that book at my desk, and someone stopped by my desk and said, hey, what are you reading? And I had to be like, and just, show them the cover. And they're like, oh, I love that book. Oh. And it was just a total shock that there was someone there who understood that I could talk to. And then in the lunchroom, someone would ask what my book was about. And I said, well, it's about Jesus. And I'd kind of like brace myself. And then this person at the table across the way, well, they actually have a question about Jesus. And this person was raised in the church over here. And then this person's been really struggling with this sin. All of a sudden, like the entire workplace changed and God started moving and working like a really big way.
Whoa.
And it was just that ounce of boldness And so I felt like in my early faith journey, God was taking those times and just showing me like how a little bit of boldness, a little bit of bravery could be totally redeemed and used by him, and taught me that it's okay to be brave. No one, you're never going to be accepted by everybody, but that's okay, but he'll work with what you give him.
Well, and that's amazing too, because you didn't do anything per se. You just kind of like in the metaphor she was talking about with rock climbing, you just leaned on the rope, and God was like, okay, here we go, and he did all the work with, moving people in the right way to like come around you and ask questions that were more encouraging and less criticizing.
For some people, and I definitely did lose people in that season of my life. People I genuinely cared about didn't understand, still don't understand. But other people who I thought wouldn't understand found Jesus. It's his journey. Like, he has plotted this path for me and for us and for you and for everyone. And are we willing to take that step? And there was a quote that I thought was just like, okay, here it is. We all start by starting. It's usually the first step that's the hardest. You raise a hand, you admit the problem, you ask for help, you tie the knot, you start climbing. Everything after starting is just making the next move. Yeah.
It's the hardest part for me, I'll be honest.
Yeah. For everyone. That first step is always the hardest.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
What about you?
So for me, I would say that the second and third question kind of combine for me. So stepping out in bravery and regaining that childlike sense of wonder, just overcoming some hesitation, kind of came together, because stepping out was honestly coming to Madison and moving here, where I have obviously never lived here before, moving to a radio station that I'd never worked at, and like with people that I'd met once or twice before, but it's a big thing. But it was my first time in my whole life that I have moved to a brand new city with no foundation. And I grew up in the church, and I grew up very active in the church. Just surrounded and supported by a lot of really, really wonderful people. And so even moving to college was a step away from that security net and that support system. And then moving to Madison was so much further away from even the relationships I built during my college years and whatnot, that it was stepping out in bravery, because of course I didn't have to do that. But at the same time, it definitely gave me a childlike sense of wonder, because I had to fully rely on God. I had to say, I don't know anything about this city. I prayed diligently that God would bring people into my life and would bring, opportunities into my life when it came to living places and connecting with people and building relationships. And oh my word, to see God answer my prayers in such big, specific ways, that renewed my childlike sense of wonder. I would tell people, I'm like, it's crazy. I just showed up, and and then this apartment was just waiting, and these friends were just waiting, and these people and my roommates, and I really got along with them, and I didn't have to like find a random person on Craigslist. I found, strong Christians to live with right away, and like just all of these things. It felt like, oh my word, for maybe the second time in my life, I felt like that childlike sense of wonder, since I was actually a child, the first time. So
yeah, sure.
But yeah, so just that stability in Christ was never so apparent than in that moment.
Yeah, that's good. I think, considering the third question, since you blended those together, I think having kids and watching them interact with the world kind of brought this question to a different light for me. Because it talks about overcoming hesitation and fears, childlike sense of wonder. I think for me, there's been scary things like moving to Madison for us as well. That was the first time we really stepped away from family in any sort of a permanent way. And that was definitely scary, but there are so many daily things that I am held back by. Like I struggle, and I'm pretty open about this, like with people pleasing. Like it's hard for me not to be liked by somebody. And I look at my kids, for example, and I see them every day when they pick their clothes. It's like Marie Kondo. It's like, well, Mom, I don't care that this doesn't match. This shirt sparks joy. And these pants with this shirt spark joy. And I'm like, honey, you look ridiculous. And for me, that matters. For them, that doesn't matter. They haven't gotten to that point where they're held down by insecurity at all. And I think that's something I'm still pretty held in bondage by. You know, I care what people think most of the time, and I'm working on that. And then I just watch how difficult situations for my kids are opportunities for them. Like Maria was talking about the lava flow, and my kids are really big into the whole floor is lava game and stuff. And they see that, though, any difficult situation in their playtime, whether it's some disaster like lava or some imaginary villain that they're fighting, as an opportunity to be a hero. They don't look at it as something where I need to hide from this, I need to run from this, I need to like shut myself away from this difficulty. They're like, okay, this is my opportunity to step up and save the day. Whoa. And just watching them play in that way. Now, and I know that, yes, it's some imaginary bad guy, and there's not some true life situation that they've been faced with yet that has forced them to make that decision. But even just watching my kids play has inspired me in so many ways to be more fearless. And I want to grow up and be more like my kids. I want to be like my kids when I grow up. And so for me, when Maria was talking about that and just the freedom in the way kids play, it's just such a lesson that I've learned as a mom.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, that's kind of our take on some of these questions and diving into these chapters a little bit more. So whether you're getting together with a group or maybe you'd like to connect on the Facebook group and share your thoughts, we would absolutely love to know your answers to these questions. So feel free to share.
Yeah, we'd love to hear from you. Look forward to it. And we'll be coming at you with these every week as we send out discussion guides. We'll talk about them too.